Yes.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi and a very good morning. Okay, it's a nice, actually it's sunny outside. Okay, so um, hopefully, I would be able to make this session as, fun as it is outside. Okay, inshallah. Now, before we continue with what I have actually prepared, okay, let me just, remind you, and also this is reminding myself too. Okay, now when I prepare this guide, so to speak, okay, to write a proposal, um, I said this is a SOMAC perspective, but then this is just a guideline. So whether you are from the education or design, okay, or from any other school, you know um, this should be able to help you as a guide. Okay, but again, you may then tailor it according to your schools or your supervisor's need. Okay, but otherwise this will give you some point to begin writing, because I know sometimes you have gone through the review of literature. You have read the theory, you understand the theory, but you were stuck there. How do I begin? Okay, so this would inshallah, okay, help you to as a guide. But then, if your supervisor say, oh, okay, can you put this in chapter 1, can you put this in chapter 3, just go with the flow, because this will just be a guide to help you. And when I prepare this, okay, this is based on number one, okay, my reading and also my experience teaching research design, okay, for so many years before I joined Taylor's, okay, and also from the guideline that I have been supervising, PhD students, more than 15 years now. Okay, so um, don't take this as, oh, it has to be this way. Okay, so this is a guide. Okay, so before we go into chapter, what is it that we need to put, what is it that we need to write in chapter 2, okay, perhaps if we were to actually look at the big picture, okay, that will give us an idea of where we have stopped and then where we are going to, continue today, inshallah. Okay, let's see. So, um, just some, brief review. Okay, I've gone through all the green, all in greens. Okay, and then so today, okay, we will be doing this chapter 2. Okay, I will turn off my video because it my there's a caution here saying that otherwise very I would have actually produced very bad audio. Okay, so let me. Oops. Okay, now chapter 2 in your your proposal or your thesis. I think the nice thing, or at least to me, the good thing that you at Taylor's actually are doing is that when you do your proposal, is chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. So if you are done with chapter 3, you go for your PD, and then you pass your PD. Wow, to me, you should feel great, because you know that you are almost there, not yet there. Okay, being there, being you are going to complete your PhD, but you are almost there, because you are well, chapter 3, and then collect your data, and then analyze your data, and then you write your chapter 4 and your final chapter. So to me, that is so interesting, and this is so systematic. Okay, so let's see, what do we write, or what is it that we chapter 2. Okay, Now, when we talk about chapter 2 of our thesis, of our proposal, okay, basically, okay, basically, these are the different items that we have in chapter 2, okay. Again, if your supervisor comes from a different school, she may say, oh, I don't want hypothesis to be here. I want it to be in chapter 1. Go ahead, okay? It's not wrong. And if you were to actually put it this way, it is also not wrong, okay? But I will explain later why do I usually have my students have the hypothesis in chapter 2 at the end of chapter 2, okay? Now, items that we normally, okay, have in chapter 2, okay, yes, you have the introduction of the chapter, you have the conceptualization of the variable, you have the empirical review of your past research. I'm sure you have read a lot by now, okay? Journal after journal, books, I am very sure of that, okay? Because if you are in, doing your PhD, reading is a must, okay? So it's no more like, pastime. This is something that you have to do, okay? And then another item that we have in chapter 2 is theoretical. Here, some scholars may say theoretical concept, or some would say, like here, what I have here is theoretical review, okay? And then framework of study and hypothesis of your work, okay? Now let's go look at each of the item that we have here, okay? Introduction of chapter 1, okay? Now this is important because the introduction is actually, introducing your reader to what to expect in chapter 2. This is not long. Probably, you have a one paragraph. I know some students who love to write, they probably have a half a page, but usually you would be very brief, because what you are trying to do here is you are trying to introduce the chapter. So you probably just begin by saying that in this chapter, the items that will be discussed will be what is it that you have there? The items that I said earlier. Or sometimes you said this chapter consists of conceptualization, review of literature, hypothesis. So this is the you are actually inviting someone to actually read your work. So before they go further into reading your work, you want them to know what is it that you are offering them, okay? So that's in the introduction. Just introduce the chapter, okay? Simple, okay? And then after the introduction, usually we'll go with conceptualization. Now, conceptualization, this is just giving definition of the variable, okay? You may have in your chapter 1 the keywords, but you have to remember, okay, the difference between this and that is keywords are very brief, okay, probably one paragraph, okay, but conceptualization, okay, is more of you define the variable that you are working in your work, okay, and then not just defining the variable, but you explained it, okay, and then you not only take one author or one scholar's view about that concept, but you probably gather a few scholars, you read a few articles in the journal, or you may read from books. Conceptualization can come from both books and journal, okay? Because conceptualization is more of definition of the variable. So if, for example, let's say, I have here example, okay? One of my students is currently doing on psychological contract engagement. So this is very, abstract. If a layman may not understand what is psychological contract engagement. So in the chapter 2, she has to actually elaborate what is psychological contract, and that elaboration has to come from her reading of different authors, different scholars. It comes from book, it comes from journal article, okay, and then she needs to put it together, okay, and that becomes the concept that she'll be using for her thesis. So similarly with your work, okay, so in chapter 2 you want to introduce your reader. When they read your thesis, the first part of your thesis, the first chapter is the big picture of your study, okay. So when you go to chapter 2, this is more of introducing the concept that you have, okay. You probably have 4 variable or 2 variable or 5 variable. It depends on what is it that you are looking at, okay. But you introduce them, you explain them in chapter 2, okay. So item number 2 that you have is conceptualization, okay. And then, okay, then you go with the empirical review. Now empirical review here, okay, what you want to actually refer to is actually you writing the review of literature from past work. And usually, because we have this word here, empirical, therefore your review, the article that you review, it should be article that has been written based on a study that has been conducted. So meaning somebody, okay, for example, probably Hanis, in 2021 has conducted a certain study about youth culture, and then she conducted a survey. So that is considered as empirical, okay. So this part that you have here, okay, this is very important, because this is where your examiner, your reader, okay, would want to see how much have you actually read to actually come to the conclusion of wanting to conduct this research or whatever research that what you want to do, okay. So you find that when we have this empirical review here, you are actually expected to refer to original studies, okay. When I said original studies here, okay, I know sometimes you find one journal, and then you read that article in the journal, and after reading, after completing the whole 20, 16 or 30 pages of the article, and then you start writing. Now when we said original studies, that means what you need to do is from that journal that you have read, okay, you need to check at the bibliography of the journal article, okay. Let's go back to the concept I said earlier, psychological contract, okay. Now if, for example, okay, that student of mine, okay, she have read from Opolot and Market, okay, the reference that I had earlier. What she need to do is, okay, not only look at that one journal, no, not only that she need to look at one article, but what she needs to do is actually to go back to the bibliography of that author's writing, okay, And then what she needs to do is to check out where did the author actually refer to when they mention psychological contract engagement. So this is what it meant by original studies. That means, you need to dig. You shouldn't be just too happy. Well, I found this already. That's it. I'm going to critically assess it. It's not enough. Okay. What you need to do is you read that, and then you check their references, and then you go and find the journal article, and then from that journal article you probably will find that author referring somewhere earlier. So you need to check and check and check. So this will really make you understand the concept. Okay. So reading of past journal article, okay, it doesn't mean just reading one or year 2020 and then you stop there. While examiner wants you to actually refer to the current reference, okay, but the examiner also expect you to understand how does it actually started. Okay, so when we talk about review, this is what you need to do. Okay, now another thing, okay, when we talk about review of past literature here, okay, now this is not a cut and paste, paste of work. Okay, this is a section where you need to read what have been done about that study that is similar to what you are doing. Okay, and then you need to critically assess. Okay, you need to read, you need to be critical about what you have read, and then you need to besides critically assessing it, you need to be able to summarize it, because sometimes what we actually find, some candidate, they have in their chapter 2, normally this will be the longest chapter in most thesis. I remember there was one thesis that I examined some years back. The candidate, she the person has already completed, now a doctor. Okay, the then as a candidate, okay, that candidate actually has written something like 60 pages of chapter 2. 60 pages. And when we examined the thesis, we said that wow, this is so you have such a thick chapter 2. Unfortunately, it's not review of password. So this is what you need to remember. Okay, review of password meaning you need to read, you need to critically assess, and then you paraphrase, and then sometimes you compare between one author and the other. Sometimes you find they are contrasting, so you need to discuss that too. So this is what review of article is all about. Okay, so it's not taking what Hanis has done in 2021, just type there, and then you find that, oh, Hassan has also conducted something similar in 1998, and then you just put it there. No, it shouldn't be that way. It should be you reading and then assess it, okay, and then critique the paper. Of course, it's not easy to critique, because to critique a paper, okay, you have to understand. You have to read, a few papers or more papers. Papers here meaning article, okay? You have to read to be able to critique, because you cannot simply critique without having, information from reading of article, okay? Okay, so empirical review. That's what you need to have, okay? And then when we talk about empirical review, before we go into the next item, still with empirical review. Now, review of literature here, okay, there's two types that you can actually, conduct. Meaning you can write in two ways. One way is chronological organization. The other is thematic way to organize, okay? So one is chronology, the other is by looking at the theme, okay? Let's see. Now, chronological here, okay, is actually going by date of publication. That means, you read an article, it was published in, 1990s, and then you put in what has been written, in 2000. So you go chronology, okay? It's good to do this, okay, because if you write it this way, okay, you'll find that you will have a rich understanding of that variable or that concept that you are using for your work, okay. You find that if you do this kind of investigation, when you go for your viva, when you submit your work, you go for your viva, if your examiner asks you, okay, about the concept, about the variable, you can very easily explain to them, because you have really looked through from what has been done in the earlier part of the work, and then until the current, okay. Unfortunately, okay, you will find that if you were to organize it according to the year, then you find that you may have it separately. That means you have, okay, in year the earlier year, and then you have, so this is talking about psychological contract engagement, and then because you go according to year, and then you find that there's another article also looking at psychological contract engagement, but in the different methods, for example. So you would not be able to put it in one category. It's okay to do that, but the flow of discussion. This is what this is why sometimes it is better to do according to the theme, because if you go according to the year, then you find that there will be some loops here and there. So this discussion may not be smooth, because you may find that there will be similar studies, but then because that studies was being conducted in a different year, so you cannot put it, you cannot discuss in the same paragraph. Okay, so that's the disadvantage of going chronology. Okay, now the other way of writing your review of literature is by using theme. Now, thematic here, okay, this is looking at work that has been done that share the same theme, or that the studies that are actually similar. That means if for example you are doing on intercultural communication, and then you find that that there are so many other different authors who are also doing that, but probably in a different region of the world, or probably using different methods, okay, or probably using a different way of analysis, okay. So but you can still lump them together. You can still put them together in one category, because they are similar studies. So this is called going with the theme. Okay, so this, if you were to write your review this way, then it will be more, it will be really smooth. okay, and you'll find that your reader would be able to understand what you have written better, okay. And of course the discussion that you also have in your chapter 2 for the review of literature would be very smooth. And the good thing about going with the thematic organization is that it makes it easier for you to identify research gap. Now, research gap here is actually, trying to actually understand what has been done. If, for example, you are doing your PhD in 2020, then you want to actually look at the gap. The past 3 years, what have been done in relation to that study that you are going to conduct? Okay, so this is good when you do following the theme. Okay, so you I if you were to ask me, then I would say that go with thematic organization, because this would be I like it this way. Why? Because I can actually have similar studies. I may have read, like, for example, 50 article about just one issue, or one topic of study, and then I can really very I can go in depth with my discussion, and then it will really strengthen my review of past work. Okay, so this is, you organize your literature review according to theme. Okay, so you look at the study that that is similar to your study, you read that, and then after reading that, you make pick up the important point. Okay, and then when you write, okay, you have references of different article that you have read. Okay, so this is a good way, actually, okay, to write your review of literature. Okay, okay, still about review of literature here, but this is not writing. This is more when you are preparing, when you are reading. Okay, let me give you some tips about this. I know that especially for us, okay, our English is really well, we understand English, but then it's not our our mother tongue. So we find that sometimes we read a journal article, we probably may not understand reading it just one glance. So what you want to do, okay, this is what I used to do also. Okay, whenever I do my reading of my literature, okay, this was when I was doing my PhD. First, when I get that article, okay, I will go through the article. I will go through the abstract, check out the abstract, and then try to understand, because the abstract will give you the whole big picture of the work of the article. Okay, so after reading the abstract, then I will go one run of the paper, meaning I will read the whole paper. Reading it once, you would not understand. It's okay, just read it so that you have an idea what the paper is all about. Okay, and then, okay, what I will do next is that I will really concentrate on the work by highlighting all the important points and everything. Okay, once I have done that, okay, then what I will do is I will have all the important points. Okay, I will actually put that in the Excel. I know for you today, okay, you don't have to do that, because today technology help you a lot. you can do Mendeley, you can do, end notes, you can do everything, okay? But when I was doing my PhD, I don't have that, okay? So I do it manually, okay, the old school way, okay? So I will actually pull out all the important things and then put that in my Excel file, Excel, and and then I get to see the whole idea, the brief idea of the work, and then I will write. Okay, so you spend so much time on that. Okay, if you think that wasting time, then go and learn Mendeley, go and learn EndNotes, go and learn all this new technology. Okay, but if you are like me, okay, still the old school person, then you want to do the way I did, but I enjoy it. Okay, okay. Now coming back to this empirical literature review that we have here. Okay, before I move on to the next slides, let me just review this again. Okay, this is arranging your review of literature according to the theme, meaning look at similar studies, okay, and then put that together, discuss your discussion and everything in the looking at whether looking at the variables or looking at the methods, but you arrange them according to theme. Okay, so that's the second way of writing your literature review. So you may want to make your after listening, okay, I hope you can decide whether you want to go with chronology or do you want to go with thematic. Okay, make your choice. Okay, nobody is going to say it's wrong. Okay, so you find that, okay, in fact, I think many supervisor would actually advise their supervisee to actually go with thematic organization, because you find that writing it in terms of going with the theme of the concept, okay, it not only will help you, especially when you want to later come out with your conceptual framework, but it also will test your the level of your thinking, because you have to be able to critically assess what you have read. You are looking at 50 journal article and then trying to really stitch them together, trying to discuss. So you need to be very, very good, and that is what a PhD should be able to do. Okay, so this is why we always say go with thematic. Okay, now, and then after that, you find that based on the review of literature, that's where you need, you would be able to actually understand those different variables that you will use for your study. Okay, for example, what the relationship between independent and dependent, and what are the independent variable, what are the dependent variable. Okay, because you refer to the literature and that would help tell you. Okay, now if you are doing qualitative, you may not have independent or dependent variable, but you still have variable. Okay, so the only difference is that, okay, you do not need to look at relationship. You would not be looking at what's the impact of independent on dependent, but you still want to understand what are the variable. Okay, so regardless whether you are doing qualitative or quantitative, you need to understand this. Okay, then you find that based on the review of literature, okay, that will also help you to understand the gap of the study. Gap here is that what is not yet known. That means what has not been investigated. So you find that, when you read so many journal articles, and if you really synthesize it, summarize it, and then put it together, you'll find that there'll be you'll be able to actually identify what is it that's missing, what is it that has not been done about that similar study. Okay, so this is why good review of literature is very important. Okay, and why you need to really conduct a very thorough, a very exhaustive review of literature, because that would actually offer you the gap of your study. And that gap of the study is important, because that gap of the study, okay, is the reason for you to actually conduct the research, because that will be your contribution to whatever that you are doing. Okay, your examiner will ask you, oh, you are doing this research, so tell us, what is your contribution? So if you have read all this different work, and then here you are with your title, then you can easily explain, oh, my study, okay, I hope that by conducting this study I would be able to add up to what have not been done. Many scholars have done on looking at relationship between uh, endorser and purchase intention. However, they have not actually, there are not many studies that have done on looking at how good are the endorser. So, this is just an example, okay? But this is what you need to understand. Okay, so if you understand, if you have done a very, very thorough review, you have read a lot, you have really reviewed a lot, you understand what you have read, you would be able to actually share what's the gap of your study. Okay? Okay, any question or any thoughts that you want to share with me before I move on?
Any questions from the floor?
Yeah, excuse me, Professor. Yeah, I have a question.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, what's the difference between the research gap here and another part of research gap in the chapter 1, introduction?
Okay. It's supposed to be the same thing. Okay. Except that in chapter 1, at least my system of the system that I'm used to. Okay. In chapter 1, the research gap, okay, I would normally tell my supervisor to just pick the most important, why you want to conduct the research. Okay, but in chapter 2, the research gap, here you go in detail. Okay, but you also find, okay, some supervisor would just say, I want the research gap to be in chapter 2. You get what I mean? Okay, but
Yeah.
my experience, okay, my experience with supervising my students, at the other universities, and also reading thesis, examining thesis from other students. Usually the research gap we have in chapter 1, because that actually would actually tell us the need to conduct the study that we want to do. Okay, here in chapter 2 here, okay, for my supervisee, I would just say, you don't have to put research gaps in chapter 2. Okay, but if your supervisor wants you to put in chapter 2, go ahead, you can still put it here. Okay, but in chapter 1, why is research gap placed in chapter 1? Because if you remember our discussion, the last time we said when we have our background of the study, before we get to the problem statement, before we go to the research question, okay, so the steps that we go, when we are actually discussing the statement of the problem, we try to, integrate research gap, theory, assumption, and then issue. Okay, so that's the reason why you have the research gap in chapter 1. But you have to remember, you do not elaborate in detail there. Okay, but if you have in chapter 2, if you were to put it here, then you find that, here it is very detailed, because you have really reviewed all the article, and then, at the end of your empirical review, you have the research gap. Okay, but don't get confused. In chapter 1, you need to have that research gap, because that is the importance of you trying to construct your statement of the problem to actually make you or direct you to the research question. Okay, is this actually duplicating? No, to me it's not. You are not repeating yourself, because to me in chapter 1 is a very concise. I don't want to say brief, because brief you may assume that just a simple sentence. No, in chapter 1 is a very concise research gap, but in chapter 2 here is a very you elaborate it in length. So to me that's the difference. So again, check with the system of your supervisor. Would he or she like you to put the research gap in chapter 2, or just fine with her if you have in chapter 1? Okay, but if you have in both places, it's not wrong either. Okay, because like I said, here in chapter 2, this is very, you really elaborate it. Okay, so did I answer your question?
Yeah, understand. Thank you.
Okay, check that with your supervisor. Okay,
Thank you,
because
Professor. Mhm.
there's no right, there's no wrong. Okay, again, this is the advice that I've gotten when I started my PhD. Many of my professor advised me, Hamisah, read your supervisor's thesis. Look at how he has written his thesis, because that's the guide to you. So I'm also, sharing this with you. Check out your supervisor's work. How did she do it? Because you are going to work with her. Because you see, one thing about PhD is that these are all guideline. What these items that I am sharing with you, these are all guideline. It's not a formula.
Mhm.
If it's a formula, you have to do it. If it's a guideline, that means you do it. It looks good. If you take it out and it still would look good. Okay. Okay. So,
Mhm.
check out all this. How is it your supervisor like it? And again, uh, the school, do they have a proper system? But I think we are easy on this, because there's no rigid system that you have to have this and this. So at least that give you the allowance to be creative in a way. Okay.
Mhm. Got it. Thank you.
Okay, now see, research gap. Okay, this is important, because for PhD candidate, when you review existing literature, and then when you actually go further, okay, looking into the topic, explore more about the topics, you understand better, and also you find that when you review literature, okay, this would actually allow you to not make duplicate what has been done. Okay, so that's in other words, the importance of doing literature review is that it would tell you, okay, this has been done already, so you don't want to do it again. Meaning, if you say that I don't want to do this study because there is lacking in review in work, shouldn't be thinking it that way. Because if you have read 20 journal article and you cannot find whatever that has been done similar to your study, then that is good. Okay, why? Because then that shows that your work would be the original. Okay, so if you cannot find literature that is similar to your work, don't make that stop you from wanting to do that topic or that study. Because you find that if you conduct the study, that means you are filling up the gap. I know sometimes not sometimes, many times also you find this happen. Candidates who were not able to find certain thing, and they said, change topic, and you will end up changing topic all the 3 years. So if you cannot find enough material, when we say review of literature, it doesn't mean that you have to make sure that that article that you are going to review is 100% similar to your work. No, the theme may be the same, but the methods probably different. The theme, the variable may be the same, but it may has been conducted in in Africa. So this is what literature review is all about. Okay. So these are some of the the different types of research gap. You find gaps in terms of geography coverage. That means it has been done. Sometimes work that has been done in Malaysia. Malaysia is, of course, if you compare to China, we are just too small, but you still find there are research that has been conducted in the rural, in the urban, in West Malaysia, in Sabah and Sarawak. And then you find that probably just the East Coast region. So that's geographical. And you find that if you coming from China, China is such a big country. You have so many different provinces. One province probably have million of the population, or like millions. So you find that it doesn't matter, because that's the gap that you want to fill. And then of course another gap is the time. What has been done 20 years ago? What you will do now in 2022? And then in terms of methods, there are research that has been done in using the quantitative, qualitative, or the mixed methods, and data collection. So these are the, you can later read this. These are the different types of research gap that you can find. So you may not include all these different things in your chapter 1, because chapter 1 you want to just find the big thing to actually integrate with your theoretical assumption, with your the issues that need for you to actually answer. So if you have your research gap in chapter 2, so this will be good. That means you can really discuss the gap here. in terms of the scope, in terms of the methods, okay? So you can do that, okay? That would be interesting. Okay, now, then the next item, after you have the review, of past literature or the empirical review, you need to have your theoretical framework. Now, theoretical framework, okay, before you have the your conceptual framework, you want to have your theoretical framework. Theoretical framework here, okay, this is based on the theory. So here you need to understand the theory that you are utilizing for your research. You need to really understand when was this theory, introduced, who introduced the theory, why was the theory introduced, how did the, scholar actually came about introducing the theory. All that you have to understand. Okay, when you pick a theory to utilize in your study, please, okay, go to the original, find out about the theory, read the theory, understand the theory, and then try to also examine what has been done about the theory. If, for example, the theory was introduced in 1960 and today is 2022, what are the changes that has occurred, all these years, okay? So this is understanding the theory, okay? So when we say theoretical framework, that means, you actually, draw that framework, okay? It's not from your own imagination, from your own reading, but it's from the theory. That means you look at the theory, you look at the variable of, that is included in the theory, and you try to understand probably relationship between the variable, and then you need to have that diagram of the theoretical framework in your chapter 2. Okay, so theoretical framework is based on the theory, and then, okay, from the theoretical framework, okay, you develop your conceptual framework. Okay, now the difference between theoretical framework and conceptual framework, okay, now conceptual framework here, this is based on what you want to do in your research. Okay, you may, for example, refer to a certain theory, okay, and that theory may have a few variables, but you may not use all the variable in that theory. You may take 2, for example, or you may take all 4, who knows, right? Okay, so now when you say that conceptual framework, that means this is based on your study. What is it that you want to examine? Relationship between what variable and what variable, independent and dependent, mediating, moderating. Okay, so this is conceptual framework. Okay, now usually, okay, for quantitative research, okay, we are very most of us, when I say we, I am a very quantitative person. Most of the research that I have conducted, that I conducted many years ago, most of the research were all quantitative. In quantitative, we have this conceptual framework. But you'll find that if you are doing qualitative, sometimes, okay, it is not necessary to have conceptual framework, because you are not looking at any, relationship between variable. Okay, so sometimes you find that, some qualitative work they don't have. Sometimes you find qualitative work do have conceptual framework. Okay, so check with your supervisor. Is she or is he a quantitative or a qualitative person? Okay, how did she do it? Okay, if she's a qualitative person, Did she also have, conceptual framework in her study? Okay, so all this, it's not wrong to have. And for if you are doing qualitative, okay, I have read some thesis, qualitative thesis that they have conceptual framework, okay, and I didn't fail them because it's not wrong to have that, except that to me, if you are doing quantitative, then conceptual framework would serve you better, because then you would be able to see those different relationship between variable that you are trying to examine. Okay. So why is theoretical framework important? Theoretical framework is important because that gives you the concept or the variable that you want to actually utilize for your study. Okay, and also theoretical framework would actually demonstrate your understanding of the theory, of the concept, and also it would also show that you understand the issue that you are actually studying in your research. Okay, so theoretical framework, this is not sometimes you do find in literature review sometimes, okay, but sometimes you find that your reading of the theory itself would actually tell you, okay, because sometimes some research, they probably have contribute to the theory. They probably have actually add in variable, or sometimes you find that in a journal article, some journal article do have theoretical framework, okay, but some journal article you find that they have instead of the theoretical framework, they have the conceptual framework, okay. But to understand the what is more important here, to understand about the theoretical framework, you need to actually really review literature, review the theory, and then analyze it, and then go to the original source, and that would actually help you better understand the theoretical framework. Okay. Theoretical framework also strengthen your study. Okay, number one, okay, the assumption would actually permit reader to evaluate your work. Okay, another reason is that, okay, theoretical framework actually will connect you as the researcher, okay, to the existing knowledge. Okay, it will also guide you to relevant theory, and it will give you the basis of the choice of methods that you want to do for your work. Okay, so as of now, if you are still not sure about your theory, if you are still well, you know the theory, but you do not know the theory in detail, please, okay, my advice is go and read the theory, okay, understand the theory, and then from that, okay, what you need to do is you want to articulate the theoretical assumption, okay, because from there it would actually allow you to understand the phenomena that you want to observe. Okay, because having a theory actually will help you identify the limit of the generalization. Now, in quantitative research, okay, this theory, this conceptual theory or theoretical framework that you have, okay, and then later you go towards drawing your conceptual framework, this is like the blueprint. This is like the blueprint of your research. That means, this is like a guide for you to conduct your research. Okay. On the contrary, okay, if you are doing qualitative, okay, the theory is not being used to guide you, but you actually, collect the data to build the theory. So qualitative is the opposite of quantitative. Okay. Although you find that today some candidates just try to combine it. They are doing qualitative, but they still have they use theory to actually guide them. It's not wrong, but if you really read, or you go with people or scholars who are really really qualitative person, then they'll say we build the theory, we actually collect the data, or we try to solve the problem, and then we build up the theory. Okay, Dr. Hanis, how much time do I still have?
About 5 more minutes will be good, Prof.
Okay, so let me just run through quickly. Now, once you have developed your framework, now the good thing, or at least the interesting part about having a framework here, is that your framework actually will show you if you are examining what variable to what variable, independent to dependent, moderating, mediating. Okay, and you find that that is actually helpful, because then that becomes like a guide. Okay, you would know, oh, okay, in this study that I'm conducting, I'm looking at X here, and how does it relate to Y? Okay, so that's a framework. Okay, conceptual framework. How do you develop this? Look at the title of your work. Look at your research problem. Okay, because you cannot simply just draw it according to the theory without understanding what you want to do. The theory is the theory, but then again, what is it that you want to do? Okay, what is your study about? Okay, so to develop the framework, okay, look at your title, okay, and then look at your research problem, or look at your research question. Okay, then from there you'll be able to actually come up with the framework. Okay, let me just give you some sample here. Okay, you can read this later. Okay, this is a sample. Okay, this is conceptual framework, meaning this person who has conducted this theory, framework for the study. Okay, the candidate, okay, check out the variable that that he wants to actually examine. Okay, and then he draw it out. So this is what conceptual framework is all about. Now you find that there are arrows that they have, and these arrows all have reason. Okay, you have to be able to explain to your examiner, what does this mean? Okay, so you do not just put the arrow. Okay, and I examined one thesis, a while back. One examiner, he went to the extent of saying that, well, you have dotted line, you have, straight line. All that has meaning. Check it out. Okay, so you want to understand, why do you have the dotted line, why do you have a straight line, all those kind of thing. But this are example of conceptual framework. That means this will guide you. Now when you look at this, okay, surely this is quantitative. Okay, after your conceptual framework, you have the hypothesis. Now, some school of thought say hypothesis should go to chapter 1 after your research question, but I would suggest that, well, if you want to put in chapter 1, go ahead, but let me tell you, if you, okay, if you put together this conceptual framework, okay, now if you find that at the end of your chapter 2 you have your conceptual framework, now all these different arrow, it has meaning. That means, for example, you are saying you want to actually examine relationship between regular pay and academic staff, and then teaching quality. So you actually have hypotheses that you construct to actually test this. So that's the reason why you have your hypothesis at the end of chapter 2, because after framework, you here, from your framework here, you put here, for example, here hypothesis 1, hypothesis 2, hypothesis 3, 4. So your hypothesis, you end the chapter 2, because when you go to chapter 3, you are going to actually answer the hypothesis. So that's the reason why you find that many theses have hypotheses in chapter 2, particularly for us communication. Okay, and for us who do quantitative, we usually have hypotheses in chapter 2. Okay, most of the theses that I have examined, all hypotheses were actually placed on chapter 2, because you want to connect with the conceptual framework. Okay, okay. Now, as for hypothesis, okay, this one I will just go very, very quickly, okay, then so that you have time to, if you have some question to raise, okay. When you construct hypothesis, you want to have null and alternative, okay, because when especially quantitative, we normally have statistical testing that we want to hypothesis testing. So usually your null, you will test the null hypothesis, because null hypothesis, this is the hypothesis that will say there's no relationship or no effect. Okay, so usually you would actually construct HO. Null is the symbol is HO. HO, there is no relationship between blah blah blah. There is no effect between what and what. Okay, so when you run your whether you do PLS, whether you do SEM, whether you are going to do multiple regression, whether you are going to just do a simple correlation, Pearson or whatever, okay, you want to test the hypothesis, okay, and usually the null, whether you are going to support or you fail to support. Some say you reject, okay. Okay, so that's it, with chapter 2. Actually, I also prepare on how to write your literature review, but I think we'll save that for later, because I understand that the most that we can sit still is 10 minutes. So, I've taken more than 10 minutes. So I don't want to, just give you so much, but then, you would not be able to really absorb it. Okay. Dr. Hanis will share with you the slides. You can read through. If you do not understand, some of the things that I have shared earlier, what you can do is you can email me or you can contact me. If you are in Malaysia, just text me. We can meet at Taylor's, and then we can discuss about this. Okay, thank you so much for your attention. Okay, good luck with your chapter 2. Okay, if you are going to proposal, all the very best. Okay, and have fun.
All right. Thank you so much, Associate Professor Dr. Hamisah Hassan, for the insightful, chapter 2, because it's not easy to get people to actually explain chapter 2 one by one by one by one, because, at the end of the day, when we register our PhD, because, you are expected to know everything. And again, this is really, really good. Thank you so much, Prof. Hamisa. So there's a couple of questions, Prof. Hamisa. I'll take the first one, which is from Xiang Wei. I just found out, sadly, a recent paper that almost filled all my presumed gaps. Does it mean I should be changing my topic, or at least adding more variables?
Sorry, what's the question again?
Uh, I just found, sadly, a recent paper that almost filled all the presumed research gaps. Does it mean I should be changing my topic, or at least adding more variables?
Okay. Not necessarily, okay, because sometimes you find that there are work that has been done to duplicate, okay. That means, um, something that was done in the 60s, and then, or something that was done in China, but today you want to do it in Malaysia, okay, duplicate, you can do that, okay. But if you don't want to do that, you can, yes. Earlier you said, can I then add variable? Yes, you can do that, okay. Now, if you find that, the things that are similar, okay, I wish we have whiteboard, then I can draw. Okay, usually, okay, this will help you if you can draw out, if you read your work, okay, your review of literature, if you can draw out the variable, okay, IVDV, for example, Hanis has done um, cultural communication as IV. Hassan has also conducted a study using cultural communication as IV. But you find that probably 10 people using doing the same thing. So in your work, you probably want, okay, instead of using that as IV, you say, I'm going to use this as DV. So then later when you present your work, then you can say, your justification is that I've reviewed, X number of journal article, and, majority were using this as IV. And I would like to test, this as DV. So it doesn't mean that if you have found that, all the papers fill all the gap, okay, therefore you should change topic. No, I wouldn't actually, um, suggest that to you. But what I would actually suggest is, why don't you, look again at the literature, okay, and then try to find, probably, you may find that there are similarity in terms of the variable, but what about the methods? What about the, geographical area? Okay, what about the scope? Okay, because I that's interesting, because I've never seen that many paper that you have everything that is so similar, because usually what we want to do and what have been done, they are usually some similarity, and there are also a lot of differences. For example, let's say you may find that okay, by the way, what is your study about, so that I'll be able to explain in the concept of your work.
Xiang Wei,
Xiang
if
Wei, what's your study about?
Xiangwei, are you still there? She's not here.
Okay.
She got disconnected if I'm not mistaken, Prof. Uh, so maybe for further clarification, maybe Xiangwei could email you, Prof.
Yeah, she can do that because this is just a gap of the study. But then, what has been done and with the current situation. So I think if we know the topic that will be help, we will be able to help her better
Yeah,
because
that's right.
you know probably the variable is good, but then that is the different situation, the different environment as compared to you know what we have today. Okay.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Prof. On that, just a quick one. Two more questions, Prof. If my research result is different from my hypothesis, would that be a problem?
That's your research. So you need you see um hypothesis there, okay, is when we construct hypothesis, we are and then we conduct we collect the data, and then you run the statistical uh, you know uh, uh, technique, everything that is to test whether you support or you reject the hypothesis, okay, or you fail to support. It doesn't matter. Of course, if you support, you say you would think that it's good. But then again, this is my research. Then you discuss in the discussion, then you said you need to then clarify why is it that your study failed to support that hypothesis. And then if you connect, because in the discussion, okay, discussion doesn't just look at the table that you have in front of you, but you relate with past study. Then you try to relate past study. Is there any research that has also rejected the hypothesis, or is it have you actually read all the article, and then most of the research actually support the hypothesis? But this is your study, therefore what you can do is you elaborate, you explain why is it that your finding do not support the hypothesis. Probably because of your methods, or is it because of the respondent, or is it because of the um, um, the place that you actually collect your data. A lot of things. So no, it's not wrong. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Prof, for that. And last question would be how to develop the conceptual framework from mixed method study. Is it just to include the quantitative part in the diagram?
Okay. For a mixed method, okay, that means the quantitative, you need the framework, but for the qualitative, you do not have to have a framework. Okay, because qualitative, like we know, uh, we gather all the data, and then we build the theory. Okay, but this one is we have the theory, and then we test it. Okay, so if you are doing mixed method, that means you have the conceptual framework. That is, you refer to the quantitative, but your qualitative, you may not have, okay, you may not even have to put in the conceptual framework. Okay.
Got it. Thank you so much, Prof. Hamisah, again for the insightful sharing session that is about 1.5 hours. Thank you so much for your time. I've given the participants and our your email, if that's okay, if they have questions in regards to how to write more enhanced in terms of their literature review and so forth. So with that, thank you so much, everybody. If you have further questions, you can forward it to me or Prof. Hamisah. Will give I will forward it to Prof. Hamisah as well. And with that, thank you so much, Prof. We wish you all the best for your literature reviews, writing and your academic writing. And again, you are not alone in the journey. We are here to help at every way possible, even though we come from a different school. So with that, can I invite everybody to open their webcam for a while, just to take a picture. Then we can wrap the sharing session. We have all our academicians, we have our postgraduate candidates from across the schools, and that's super great. All right, and okay, with that, everybody ready? Okay, so with that, let me take a picture. 1, 2, 3, smile. Thank you so much, everybody, for the participation. Thank you so much, Prof. Hamisah. Please take care. All the best in your PhD journey. At any time, you can email me, you can email Prof. Hamisah, and we will organize future workshops soon to help in your PhD journey. So thank you so much. Please take care and stay safe. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Prof. Hamisah. Thank you so much, everybody. Everybody's saying thank you to Prof. Hamisah. Thank you, Prof. Hamisah, in the chat box. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you. Thanks, Prof. Hamisah.
Thank you.